Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today we're going to be discussing tomorrow's 2020 Democratic primary elections in the states of Illinois, Ohio, Arizona, and Florida. Earlier today, Governor Mike DeWine, I believe recently elected in 2018, announced that he would be focusing and opening this court case to postpone the Ohio primary elections. In case you haven't heard, the judge denied that request. The request was to move the Ohio primary up until June. The judge said no, so it looks like all four primaries will be going on tomorrow. There is a lot of discussion about the whole coronavirus scare into the primaries, and it is a very real threat. A lot of these polling stations are going to have a lot of precautions that they otherwise wouldn't have in order to prevent the spread of coronavirus, considering that a lot of the polling stations, they'll be using the same pens and the same areas for ballots. It doesn't look like it's the best case for a lot of these voters, but there were plenty of options ahead of time to allow their voices to be heard, and if everything actually holds up tomorrow, it looks like it will move off, hopefully without a hitch. But if you're in any of those states, make sure you go ahead and get out to vote, wear gloves to your polling station, do anything you can, but make sure that your civic voice is heard, because that is one of the most, American things you can do. Sounds cliche, but it definitely is. So let's take a look at what I personally believe will happen tomorrow. Just announced from the New York Times, Joe Biden officially wins the state of Washington. This comes as a very narrow victory, I believe a 2% margin. We can actually go ahead and take a look right now. But if you take a look, this part is the most recently updated numbers. A margin of around 20,000 votes for Vice President Biden. Not exactly the worst thing, considering Bernie Sanders got 70% of the vote back there. There was a debate between Senator Sanders and Joe Biden this past Sunday, yesterday. I don't know why I said that. I guess force a habit. But there was a debate, and to be honest, it did not do either of the candidates necessarily a favor, if that makes sense. Bernie Sanders definitely called out Joe Biden on a number of things that Donald Trump otherwise would have if he had moved past and won the nomination outright. And they had not held the debate due to coronavirus. But I do think that the debate did hold Joe Biden, against the wall. Considering that Bernie Sanders could have done a lot more, I think that it definitely could have been way more disastrous for Joe Biden, which is why I think that Joe Biden came out with an ultimate victory. Same thing with Bernie Sanders. I think both of them did something not necessarily new, but something that was very good for their supporters. I'm not going to say either of these two candidates necessarily lost support. When I was watching that debate, when Joe Biden was, saying that he never advocated for cuts for Social Security, and Bernie Sanders was literally like, go to YouTube and look that up. I thought that was the end of the debate. I thought that Joe Biden would be cut off from there, but Joe Biden definitely brought back a lot of things in terms of voting history against Bernie Sanders, and a lot of things which may not be arguably the same points, but definitely did make an impact, at least face value, that didn't necessarily have a positive impact on the Sanders campaign. But tomorrow, we have four states that are insanely heavy in terms of delegate count. The least amount of delegates comes from the state of Arizona. I believe it's around 67 delegates, but the remainder of the states have over 100, and the state of Florida has 214, I believe. We can actually just go ahead and check. There's no point in just guessing. 248. Or 219. 29 unpledged means super delegates. So, essentially, let's just go ahead and take a look at the 538 forecast. I do believe that Joe Biden will carry all four states, and I do think that the margins are going to be pretty substantial. But that's not the end of the video here. There's a lot to say about why Joe Biden is doing so well in areas that would otherwise be Bernie Sanders, maybe not strongholds, but definitely an area that he could actually win in. If you take a look at before, Bernie Sanders did have a chance at winning in the state of Florida. Back right before the South Carolina Democratic primary, Bernie Sanders seemed to be on top of the world in the state of Florida. He was leading, and Mike Bloomberg was in second place, and Joe Biden was in third place. But since then, Joe Biden now has a greater than 99% chance of winning the Florida primary. Well, Florida has a lot of Hispanic voters. The Democratic electorate definitely contains a lot of Hispanic voters as well. Nevada was a very huge success for Bernie Sanders. So why all of a sudden is it now looking like Joe Biden is resonating better with them? Well, first of all, a lot of the Democratic electorate is still not Hispanic, which means that there's still African-American votes, there's still Asian votes, there's still white Democrat votes. There's literally so many other, demographics that pour into the Democratic, area in the state of Florida, and they are all full-fledged support for Joe Biden. The only demographic that actually votes more for Bernie Sanders is actually the Latino population. And unfortunately for Bernie Sanders, it may look like some of these states may be his last hurrah. If you're looking ahead to some other states in the future, sure, he has a better chance in Hawaii, Alaska, Wyoming, but those are all 3 states that are poised to go to Joe Biden as of right now. And if Biden sweeps all 4 states tomorrow, again, the old question comes into play is, does Bernie Sanders have a pathway to the nomination? I think that Joe Biden is going to win Florida by possibly 20 to 30%. I'm narrowing more down towards the 20% just because of the whole coronavirus scare, and there's a real possibility that a number of older voters, which definitely benefit Joe Biden, do not come out and vote. But regardless, this is a huge electoral prize, and any margin of victory above 10% for Joe Biden is still going to be deemed as a win. In terms of low turnout, I can understand why, because older voters are not going to want to get the coronavirus, obviously, because they're the ones who are most at risk. But again, we've really never seen a time where old people don't come out and vote. They are actually the most active voting base in the country. As for Illinois, this is an area that you might expect Bernie Sanders to do well in. I do think that the margin of victory is not going to be as big as people might expect it to be. Illinois might narrow down just based off the fact that the general area around the Rust Belt and Illinois and Indiana have, I guess, done better for Bernie Sanders in the past. Illinois was very close in 2016. It doesn't look like it's going to be close this election season, but I do think that Joe Biden may be under that 60% mark. Again, this is not good news for Bernie Sanders. Looking at the remainder of these states, Ohio and Arizona, his last leg to stand on is probably Arizona, and it is possible Bernie Sanders wins in Arizona, but the chances aren't looking too likely. So again, greater than 99% chance of winning in the state of Illinois. As for Ohio, the chances do narrow down just a tad bit to 98% chance for Vice President Biden. Ohio, again, this is an area much like Michigan and Wisconsin, just a little bit more conservative, but then again, we are talking about the Democratic primary, where Bernie Sanders should be doing a little bit better in. And unfortunately for Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton was not the candidate to appeal to the white working class. Joe Biden seems to be that candidate. He was born in Pennsylvania, grew up in Delaware, and while those states may not be, I guess Delaware is definitely not a Rust Belt state, he definitely still has that story that resonates with a lot of voters. And he seems to be offering this progress, results, not revolution type agenda that he's been pushing at the debates, pushing in political ads. And I think that's actually resonating with a lot of these voters in Ohio. I do think that Joe Biden is going to win by a substantial amount in the state of Ohio. I think that the margins are going to be largest in Florida, then Ohio, then Illinois, and then Arizona. And my main reasoning for that being, well, if you take a look at the state, Florida is pretty much a lost cause for Bernie Sanders. Same thing in Illinois, despite it being an area that he should do well in compared to 2016. Moving over to Ohio, it's another area close to Illinois. If we take a look at the demographics, huge African-American population that is crucial to any Democratic victory in Ohio. The Democrats did not get it in 2016, and it is possible they won't get it in 2020 if the Democratic Party does not nominate a candidate that can appeal well. And both of the candidates, I think, could. When I say both, I'm not referring to Tulsi Gabbard, but just looking at the Ohio Democratic primary, again, I think this is going to be a Joe Biden victory. Probably going to have the third smallest margin of victory for Joe Biden. And I do think that Joe Biden will carry the state of Arizona. This is an area where, if you look at the remaining states, it's going to be near New Mexico and Arizona. Those are the final 2 states in the quote-unquote Sun Belt, besides Texas. California, Nevada, Colorado, Utah are all states that have already gone to Bernie Sanders. So it doesn't really make sense for the remainder of these states to not fall in. Not saying that they are supposed to go to either candidate, but if you take a look, the area should generally be around the same. They have the same demographics, huge Latino population in Colorado, in Nevada, in California, in Arizona, in New Mexico, and around the same area, around the Sun Belt, definitely should have the same type of regional issues that agree with the same candidates. But unfortunately for Bernie Sanders, the momentum that Joe Biden has built up has definitely changed the course of this race to a point where it doesn't even matter. we're looking at states like Alaska and Hawaii that look like they may actually be more likely to go to Joe Biden than Bernie Sanders. Considering that he won those states by drastic margins in 2016 is shocking, to say the least. And if you take a look at almost all of the remaining states, if not all of the remaining states, Joe Biden is poised to win them. And with 4 victories tomorrow, the question still will remain, does Bernie Sanders have a pathway to the nomination? And unfortunately for Bernie Sanders, it doesn't look too nice. There's still a lot of contests to go. We have the April 28th Super Tuesday with a lot of the northeastern states. We definitely could see Bernie Sanders campaigning in a number of them. But if the momentum continues and there isn't a Democratic debate, though the DNC did say that there would be one, if there isn't a Democratic debate, there's no real national stage for Bernie Sanders to get his voice heard. And tomorrow may be the end of the Democratic primary race. I genuinely do hope that I am wrong, just because I don't want it to end here, because no primary is fun watching when everyone knows who's going to win already, which is exactly why all the primaries are interesting. But the American electorate will decide tomorrow if they will back Joe Biden by as large of a number that we are expecting him. But again, reiterating my point, I do think that Joe Biden is going to carry Florida, Illinois, Ohio, and Arizona, and the margins of victory will be in that order from greatest to least. So there is a possibility Bernie Sanders is not even viable in some congressional districts in Florida. So keep that in mind when you look at some of those delegate numbers, why it seems like Bernie Sanders isn't getting as fair of a share in terms of proportion. He is underperforming in a number of congressional districts where he's polling at 12, 13%, which you do need a 15% threshold in order to win. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. I hope you guys are staying safe out there. Social isolation, definitely a huge thing. Make sure you guys actually listen. I know a lot of my viewer, base is young. I made a stupid decision to go out last Thursday because I was like, oh, it's not that serious. And honestly, I'm just going to stay in my house for the next 2 weeks to 1 month. For any of you high school students out there, the College Board announced that in all likelihood we will be taking our AP exams at home, which is going to be really, really weird. May SAT is canceled. April ACT has been postponed till June. But it looks like doesn't look good per se. But that's besides the point. That's not what this channel is about. But again, stay safe, wash your hands for 20 seconds, guys, and stay indoors unless you absolutely need to get out of the house. So, again, thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you all tomorrow.